right. That was another one. That was a whole another one. Um, yeah. So go ahead on, Roman.
This is good. This is good. Um, I never expected watching Dune, a TV show or a movie. I never expected seeing a love scene and the aftermath of a love scene between two houses to be so like dramatic, heartbreaking, and metal as hell. Like I never thought we see that day. Hello, Captain. Oh, Captain. Another phenomenal episode in the bag. Like, and it was more of a character driven one than plot, if you will. Like plot was in the background, but it was all characters. It was all like, where do you stand in this world? Are you about your house or about your code and your own beliefs and whatnot? Um, and this might be my favorite one thus far. I think. Sam, and how we feel?
Man, I'll say this: Lila stood on business. She. No, so it's crazy how they handled the non-linear story progression. Like a lot of shows, they can't do that very well, where you go into the past, go to the present, go into the past, go to the present. But every single scene they utilize, with Lila or with the Supreme Mother, added volumes to how they are right now and the decisions that they're making in present day. But I think that this is one of my favorite episodes as well because like I now have value like for these characters. Like before it was like they're interesting, they're well written, but now there's weight there. Because I never could have imagined Lila's character being progressed so well in one episode. Like that's really hard to do. While at the same exact time, Valia, like she's powerful, but she's not as untouchable as I realized. It was really well done how they did this balancing act of keeping the narrative moving forward while at the same time adding weight to the characters that we already seen. But yeah, and we didn't even see any of like Mark Strong's family or anything. This was just the Harkonnens. This is just their episode, which that shows how strong they are as characters. That this is one of the best episodes, and none of the other characters were even really involved outside the Sisterhood.
Yeah. And
I think the way they constructed that scene and built it up was amazing. Because even we're having the real time thing of the fact they made sure that there was a rowdy noise outside almost the whole time we were watching these two characters in this room. And then we're like, okay, how's he gonna react? Because he first looked at her like, and then he's acting kind of cool. All right, does he mean it? Does he mean it? And I was like, oh, is she gonna kill him? Because something dirty is gonna happen here. And then he comes to realization as we come to the realization, why is it so quiet? And it's like, oh, the layers and build up and anxiety of this scene was masterfully done.
Yeah.
Masterfully done. It took us on an experience of going back and forth, not knowing what was going to happen. And then even then, upped it even more because he still didn't get to react. He was still in shock when she injected old boy. And you could tell it's even worse because he did accept her, right? He gave this whole speech about how we don't have to be shackled by our trauma and we can forge through with a new hope. And she's like, yeah, that sounds real nice, but at the end of the day, my brother's still gone. Like,
she went full Arya Stark. She's like, tell him that the North remembers.
How they even designed that? Like, it's kind of like they showed you her capability of being able to, like, be resourceful and deal with like certain medicines and certain poisons. But I legit, when they were all drinking and like taking the shirts off and like he had her in a room, I thought that he was gonna go turncoat and they were gonna like do something against her. Like I was like, oh man, like she's she's the sheep with all these wolves. I legit thought that something terrible was going to happen before they even made love. I was worst case scenarioing it up until they had that conversation. And I was like, well, man, he gave a good, correct response. So, like, is it that, the family is going to have problem with her? And when, like Aunt said, like, when it went quiet, I was like, I know she was there by herself. So what happened? And then my head went, she knows how to poison. And I was like, it was a masterful scene, dude. Like, the setup that was insane.
And since we aren't talking spoiler stuff for this episode, I just want to say this. Her dealing with that horse and how we're all like, is that the best way? And then it just like instantly thought, we're like, okay, she did the merciful thing of putting that horse out of his misery. I want to ask this question. Do you think when she was getting up, was she gonna spare his life and just leave him? Because she spared the kid's life that like no other than she was like F off. But like she was getting up and she thought he was still asleep. Do you think she was gonna spare his life? And be like, I did the due diligence. And then once he woke up, she was like, oh my gosh, I have to do this.
My opinion, I think she was gonna go get some more poison and inject his neck. I think, remember, like she technically poisoned him anyway. I don't remember what time she grabbed it. I'm not sure where she grabbed it from. I had to go back and watch the episode, but I think that she would have let him be at peace and sleep and let him go without her having to deal with that conversation. I think she wanted to avoid that conversation. I think she was more afraid of having to deal with the reality that, man, he's a human being. Man, he maybe actually loves me and likes me. I think she was gonna let him go peacefully without having to deal with that consequence of the conversation. That's my opinion, though.
Yeah, there's two things there. Either she was going to let him go peacefully because we saw how quiet it works, because she did care for him, like she did care for him.
She did.
But when he got up, I feel like she had to unburden about what she was afraid of. Like she wanted. Sometimes when you tell somebody the truth, it's more for you than it is the other person. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I feel like that was for her. That was her unburdener still to her, knowing what she was going to do. So I think that she probably would have got him in his sleep, and that would have been her mercy because she loved him. But when she got the chance, she unburdened herself, kind of. And now I feel like she just couldn't kill the kid. Like I just feel like it was like, I kill these grown men, but I ain't got it in me to kill this boy right now. And I'm I guess presumingly that's where the rest of the house came from. That last survivor, I guess we're saying.
Well, so no, I think that is the boy that's in present day. I think that's the kid that is the swordsman that's working with the house.
Imagine if that was the case.
Because we never heard his name.
Oh, that's true.
And like based on his age, it would fit. It would actually fit. He was a young little boy.
And so this is the other thing, is like, this is how blood feuds get started, right? And like, where does it stop? Yeah, 100 years ago this happened, and then another 100 years this happened, and then like, now you can't trust them Harkonnens. We let a Harkonnen in the bed once and killed off most of the generation. Things like that. I did this doctor out of Chicago, and she went to school. She was in medical school with in her classes was a Hackfill and a McCoy, and they used to joke about how there's no beef now, but they were like they're family. Like, yeah, we know. And I remember she said something came up in a class she was in, and they was like, yeah, I'm a Hackfill, and that guy's a McCoy, and it was like, oh, y'all know each other? It's like, we know of each other.
Oh snap.
And it was like, it's still going. It's like, no, it's not. But that's the American feud. If you think about the open American feud, and so like something happens, and how do you let it go? Who lets it go? Who lets a child's death go? Who lets a whole, a majority of your clan go? And this all started from dishonor at first, and then the death of one sibling, right? So who lets it go? And then can you let it go? Because then at some point it's just breathing. You know what I mean? Who are you without this?
Right.
Yeah, and also the way that thing wrapped up with the bull on the hill. And again, it's something that it may not be an Atreides thing, but I caught it. I remember that little statue thing from the film, and how Paul talked about his grandfather. And I'm like, that has to be a signature thing from the Atreides. And just seeing it, it was almost like the Blade Runner flashback, where Deckard sees the unicorn in his dream. It just,
I
metal.
like I like where I can't predict where things go, and because I
Yes.
didn't know whether she was going to be pregnant from this. I didn't know whether
Same.
like and we know their blood has been mingled before. Like we know that
They're cousins essentially, right? The houses.
yeah. So I mean, at some point, you're fighting the name. You're just fighting. You're on this side. I'm on this side. You wear whatever color. I wear whatever color, but I hate you. um. Yeah, I don't know. It was a beautifully constructed scene. The acting was on point. The facial expressions, especially. Whoever is, maybe it's just them naturally, but whoever's coaching and directing them, their facial expressions have told us more than actual words. Like you almost have to ignore the words that are being said at times to focus on the body language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that like even when you go back to Valia and how she was so stunned from that episode 2 ending that like now she's having to make these rapid modifications, and how's that reflecting with the Sisterhood back home, and how even the young girls now are like, we're pawns now. What's the sense of community if we're just being used up? There was that one speech of when they were trying to let Lila rest in peace, was just like she served us well or whatever. She said somewhere that I'm like, you just called her a tool,
right,
for the greater good of you, and it's just like that doesn't inspire.
It's not sisterhood, but
self-esteem.
That's collective in there. Yeah,
that's there. Some might even call it a cult, if you will. And it's just like I love Valia and Tula's parents. You see what Griffin did for the whole family. The fact that Valia's power, shut up, is before she joined the Sisterhood, and it's just, I love it so much. And listen, the cinematography, I'm pretty sure they shot this in locations. If they didn't, they did a good enough job to hide it as like if they were at a cold ass location for some of these scenes. And the music, Valia standing in the rain for a whole day, if you will, until the Empress, the main sister, came and picked her up, and how. So you tell me this, Ant. The thing about the technology in the Sisterhood, is that canon, or should I even not bother asking that question?
I don't know that. I never seen that. From what I remember, there are sects that have technology out there in the world. Like it's the cloning ones that bring back. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but bring back a character that's been dead multiple times.
Okay, I know who you're talking
characters.
About, yeah. I've heard about this. Yeah.
So we know there's archaic esoteric technology out there, right? So there's just and they're all about power, so this is just something they're using there to do it. So I think it's believable. The one thing I need to know more is, I was kind of surprised she just came up with this on her own, the voice. Like I wonder if it's genetic mutation. I wonder what led to this, her just being able to do that.
So the Supreme Mother that's from the past basically says something along the lines of like this had to have been a reactive response to survival. Like
crisis, survival, and advancement.
Right. You reacted and something came from it. And so it's like, I think that yeah. Thank you for writing it down. I was like, what are the three things? And it was kind of like she saw her brother that she loved drowning. She knew for a fact he had paralysis. She called out to him as an emotive response because that's all she could do. But something came out of it. So it's almost like a mutation, essentially, which is fascinating.
I was going to say, mutation, or like sometimes when we've heard these random, crazy, unexplainable stories where like someone gets pinned in a car where it's fire and they don't have this much strength, but because they see someone they care about in peril, they lift the car or a door out of the blue with like untapped, strength. It's the way we say that we only use 25% of our brain. What happens if in a critical moment everything lines up and they unlocked more of that brain of what they can do?
I get the concept you're saying, but that's also a myth. We use all our brain.
Okay.
But I get the no, I get the concept. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it like that.
No,
But I
no,
get
it's all
the
good.
the only thing I question is, and again, I feel like I need to go back and reread the books because, from my understanding of it, it wasn't just it's a technique. Like you're using you're using what you know about what you can glean from the person to do suggestions to them, and it's a very high level skill. So it's kind of weird they're going with the mutation, but it also it's easy to explain what it is in the book versus transmitting that in another medium. So it might just be easier to say because the same effect. They have this ability they can train to learn, right? She has it naturally, or she's discovered it naturally.
Right.
They could train it. So maybe I might be this might remember how we talked about you could nitpick if you go. I think this is my nitpick, and I could be wrong. I need to go back and look this up.
Yeah, because I honestly was thinking about it like, say if somebody, had been trained to do something for an extended amount of time, and all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, I can be able to do this. I never knew that I could be conditioned to do this. And then they kind of share with somebody else years down the line, like, oh no, you can learn this, but it's gonna take time and wait. Because kind of like even them, like with their technique of breathing to transmutate, like to be able to hone and focus and whatnot. Like these are learned things. It's kind of like if you're working with a Shaolin monk, there's certain things that I just cannot do unless I was like privy to how they do it from a technique standpoint. Because she basically is about to show them. Like we saw the scene, she's like, I'm glad you know. Because even when she had them cornered and talked to them, and she did it, she was like, "Oh, I was surprised. I didn't think it worked that effectively." And the fact that she can replicate it and show other people to do it, it's definitely not specific to just her. It's just something that she caught, and now they're replicating it. And it's much like I guess all the other things that they've learned with their tools of the trade over years. I guess
somebody always has to be the first, pretty much. And it could be a technique. It's just described more like how they do social engineering, like they'll put stripes on the floor if they want people to slow down walking. That's where the power is. It's manipulating how we respond to something, or if you ask me a question, I look over here, you might look over there. It's that's how they're controlling people, from what I understand from the books. But yeah, I think you're right, and I think they even paid homage to that with the. If you're an old kung fu, like Saturday morning kung fu theater guy like me, we've seen people, no, you can't be trained here. I'm going to wait outside the Shaolin gates for 3 days and 3 nights, master. No, go away. And then on the 7th day, the doors just open.
He's still there. Yeah.
And so I thought that was a very cool, I don't know. It's a very thinly veiled reference. I don't want to say they stole it. I'm saying that like that's what it was kind of reversed too, because she could have lied, she could have left, and then having the Reverend Mother come down. It's a really cool scene. Everything about this episode was well done.
Yeah, because we didn't even talk about Valia like being antagonized by, the Reverend Mother's descendant, like her granddaughter. Like she basically was getting antagonized the whole entire time because she was a Harkonnen. And then down to the point that they were doing one of their final tests, and like all she had to do is submit, like, sisterhood above all. She could not say it. She was literally in the dark and in the rain, and that was when she turned against the Supreme Mother at the time. And it's just so fascinating. There's so many different levels. But I think the thing that caught me off guard out of everything that happened with Valia in the past is when she went back home after her sister did what she did, yelled at her mom to stop, because I was like, okay, that's enough, right? She told her mom, pick up the freaking knife to show dominance. Like, I could end your life if I choose to. This is what you're missing out on. This is what I am. This is my power. And I was like, that's a boundary power move. Like, it was so intentional, because I was like, what is she doing here? Like, what do we... I actually considered, like, is she actually going to go through with it? But that was a very powerful scene as well, because it shows so much about who Valia is, and even who she is right now. But yeah, that was one of my favorite scenes.
I want to like jump off that. Like, I don't know if Mario Puzo, Francis Ford Coppola back in the day, read Dune before they made The Godfather, but hell, the people making this show, they've seen The Godfather. Like there's so many times that you see a lot of Sonny Corleones or Michael Corleones or Don Vito Corleones where they're trying to keep the peace, and yet something comes up and it's just like you have to lean into a way that you don't want to. I love the whole thing of, I forego the death of my son, but I have selfish reasons. It was almost a similar thing in this one where it's just like, do you forego our blood, bad blood between our families or not? And man, Tula went full Michael Corleone at the end. She's like, I took care of all family business. So don't mess with me. And it's just like, and I want to know more about her with why she drew attachment to Lila. Because did she get pregnant? Did she have a kid? Maybe lost it in the midway, and now she looked to Lila for the lights now, and why she won't let go of Lila now? Like it's so good, folks. When we're with Tula, I'm invested. When we're with Lila, I'm invested. When we're with the House Corino, I'm invested. With the Rebellion, I'm loving the show. It has not have a misstep. No sign of the pacing slowing down or going forward. Like I said, I wasn't expecting a flashback or like a whole episode dedicated to the Harkonnens. But I welcome it. And just to wrap things up, overall for this episode, how would you rank it and rate it?
This is a 10, bro.
Yeah.
This is the best episode so far. And I didn't think, coming off the last two episodes, that they would be able to go and push it any further. Because I was like, I think the show's gonna hit its stride, right? This is on a trajectory, just keeps going up, and yet they chose this episode to show us different locations, different elements, different aspects of even different peoples, and given also weight to the Harkonnens that are in this. I really do think that this is a very good show because for 3 episodes, man, they are freaking rocking it. So 10 out of 10 for me.
10 out of 10, A+. Every episode has been better than the last, in my opinion. They have definitely upped the ante. I was watching Agatha all along or whatever, and there was one episode that was like really, really good. I haven't really liked most of the season, but there was one episode that was really good. And I was like, this is what they put their writing in. And this one, it seems like they challenged them every episode to up the ante, and it's like, bam, bam, bam. What they got next? How long is this season?
I think 8 episodes, maybe.
And this is what, 3 or 4 we see.
This is the 3rd episode that we just watched. Yeah.
We got one more episode to go.
I'm like, how do you keep this momentum going? Because every single time there's been something. Like every episode has had a scene, at least one scene that you're like, and everyone has ended in a way that makes you want to see the next episode. So A+, 10 out of 10.
Yeah. It's only 6 episodes.
Only 6 episodes?
Well, 3. We got 3 more of how. My question is, how y'all gonna keep a season 2 if season 1 is this hard? It goes this hard.
Listen, y'all. By the time you're watching this, we're still getting the Penguin out.
Yeah,
it's in that same talk, if you will. And much like Penguin had an episode dedicated to Sofia Falcone or Sofia Gigante, this is not the same, not same ranking, view, but it shared that DNA of just like on the characters.
Kind of the same scene.
It's similar to an extent, yeah. But it's a different ball game. But it's like, all right, you're on the same parallel tracks, just doing different things. And the best compliment I can give it is that I want this on Blu-ray already. That's the best compliment I can give it already. Is I want it on Blu-ray already.
Yeah, I feel the same way about Penguin. Like, I need Penguin in my life physically.
I need to own it. I need to own it.
This joint right here, if you pair this show with the 2 Dune movies, they're 3 for 3 at this point. Because this joint is slapping as hard as Shogun and Penguin, which is I didn't anticipate that being the case.
It is almost the end of the year. Why HBO coming out with all these last minute? I thought I had my favorite picks for the best shows. You know what? Not 2025. You got to end 2024. It's hard. What you trying to prove?
They're trying to prepare. They're trying to prepare our hearts for February. That's what it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, throwing haymakers that are connected. That's what they do at this end of this year.
Mhm.
Oh man.
But yeah, that'll conclude our review for episode 3 of Doom Prophecy. If y'all haven't yet, go check out our previous ones for these episodes. It is just a blast to consume this story and hang out with my friends. And with that, I want to say, Ango, plug yourself. Where can people find you?
Right here on JVS or with Ronin Unchained or with Busy. Let's get busy. And anybody that invites me on, we're good. But mainly here on JVS, and it's always a pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you for including me in these great discussions.
Nice. It's our pleasure to have you.
Dude, thank you for having us, man.
Yeah.
This has been a really good experience. Oh, Ronan, where can everybody find you?
You can find me at Ronan Unchained on YouTube, on socials. And yeah, right now, I'm going to have to look at my calendar and be like, okay, November is Dune, Arcane, and then what else is coming afterwards? Okay, cool. That's it. All right. So stay tuned to that. Subscribe to the channel, grow it out more. And I have a lot of crazy ideas I want to make.
All right, guys. We're gone. We'll be back. Prepare yourselves. There's a lot more coming. Peace, people.